Welcome to a podcast celebrating Scottish culture and entertainment, which is here to sing the praises of books, films, comedy, music, theatre, exhibitions, telly, poetry, and all that jazz. I'm Nicola Meehan. I'm an arts writer and broadcaster, and I'll give you the lowdown on what's coming up, what's happening now, what came before, and what we love, which is to say that every week I am here to give you a kick up the arts. Now, before we dive into this week's episode, which was recorded live at Aberdeen's Granite Noir, just a reminder that if you're in or around Glasgow on the afternoon of March the 1st, we would love to see you at the Glad Cafe for a Kick Up the Arts live. That's with award-winning poet and writer Michael Peterson. Alan Cumming loves him, Shirley Manson from Garbage loves him, Nicola Sturgeon loves him, everyone loves him, and little wonder. Michael's going to be chatting about a favourite Scottish album, film and book, along with his wider life and work, and we'll also have live music from the brilliant Siobhan Wilson and Raveloe. We'll be there from 2:30 onwards. Michael and the gang will hang around afterwards for a drink and to sign books and records. I'll be DJing as well. It'll be a lovely afternoon and we would love to see you. But on to this episode and the wonder that is actor Dawn Steele, who joined me in a glorious audience. Thank you so much if you were with us at Aberdeen Music Hall on Sunday. Dawn first arrived onto our screens and into our hearts as Lexie in Monarch of the Glen, followed by starring roles in Wild at Heart, Holby City, Shetland and Aberdeen's own Granite Harbour. And that is not to mention various film and theatre credits, including John Byrne's Cutting a Rug and Tutti, Frutti. She's also got myriad connections to Aberdeen, but we'll come to all of that. We were in the Music Hall's Big Sky studio, but Dawn whisked us away to her home, virtually speaking, for a Kick Up the Arts all back to mine, choosing us a Scottish album to play us, a screen classic to show us, and a Booker Prize-winning novel, no less, for some bedtime reading. We also chatted about Paolo Nutini, Dorothy Paul, hyenas, crisps and lemon trees, obviously. Anyway, what a woman, here she is, and thank you so much again if you were in our terrific audience. Give a Granite Noir welcome, she might not come out if you don't cheer loud enough, by the way, to the wonderful Dawn Steele! Woo! Ooh, I know, she's a way back.
I'm only going to come out if they clap, because then I can hear.
Dawn
I could actually hear you really, really well, so it's fine, yeah.
Oh, excellent. Oh, should have made the introduction a bit better if I knew you were listening. Thank you so much for coming up. You've come up from, I won't give your address away because you've not given it to me, but you've come up from Whitstable
so
and Kent.
So Whitstable and Kent, which everybody's like, where? And if I just say, near Margate, everybody goes, right, okay, yeah.
Somewhere by the sea, which you spend quite a lot of time in.
Yes, I do.
So we're going to blather over the next sort of 3/4 of an hour, or thereabouts. We'll be here for about an hour. We won't keep you too much beyond that. Although
it's nice and cool.
It's lovely and cool. The doors are open and the heating is off, so let's hope that the temperature goes down as the chat goes up. I just want to say again, thank you so much to Scott, who is recording this. Is it all recording, Scott? Scott's an absolute legend. Scott's learned me all sorts of things about gain. I came to see you, didn't I? I was like, I know about gain now. I know about microphones and how they work, and you know where to come, because there was a little bit of a venue mix-up.
Yeah, I was at the Lemon Tree, guys.
About 5 minutes ago.
I was down there. And obviously they didn't know who it was, why I was there. And they were like, and then I'm with friends who were like, yeah, it doesn't say that on the ticket. So I'm blaming them. Sorry. I don't have a ticket, do you know what I mean?
The lovely, yeah, exactly. Damn right you don't. You're on the guest list. The wonderful thing is we first met about 2 hours ago in the hotel. Oh, hello. And you were going to Wagamama and having a lovely lunch, and I was coming to do all my tech stuff and try and feel important.
Yeah, and I was still
Everything seems
late.
casual. Yeah. But it's so lovely to have you here. And we're going to chat, obviously, about Dawn's own life and work. But one of the things I do on the podcast is something called All Back to Mine. And it's basically a sort of imaginary night in or afternoon in round at their house. So we're going to go round to Dawn's gaff. Again, we don't have the address, but we can imagine.
Yeah.
And it can be in any
Mine's
place
is always
or time.
The place.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Yours is the place.
And my husband has walked behind me going, no, nobody's coming back. And I'm like, coming back to ours? Nobody's coming back to ours.
It's dangerous.
So yeah, you're all welcome.
Right, amazing. Well,
my husband's
you.
not here, so it's fine.
Even better. No offence to your wonderful husband, no doubt. Anyway, so you are going to talk about a sort of screen classic, Scottish screen classic that you've chosen that you would put on the VHS a little bit later. Then you've chosen a Scottish book for some bedtime reading. But we're going to start, you're going to take us into yours. Maybe you've got one of those hi-fis. I always think about those ones that had the sort of smoked glass from the 1980s, right? And you're going to put on, is it a record? Is it vinyl? Is it a tape?
Definitely a vinyl. Oh, hold on. No, it's vinyl.
Right.
Definitely vinyl. Yeah. Although I'm probably from the CD era, but
a bit of
I do like a vinyl. Yeah.
So while I take my bangles off, because I'm far too much of a footer and they're going to jangle through this entire recording otherwise, tell us what you chose. And also, I love the fact that you were absolutely top of my list to do this. And I'm so thrilled you said yes. But one of the things you said was, I just loved the idea of doing it this way. So when you then thought about a Scottish album, was this a no-brainer?
It was a no-brainer. And it's so much a no-brainer that even all my friends knew exactly what I was going to choose. They knew exactly what book I was going to choose. I mean, it's a wee bit embarrassing, but yeah, I must bang on about it more than I know. So my album choice, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to even do the podcast, because Scottish music and Scottish culture is such a big part of me. And I've not lived in Scotland for 20 odd years, and I'm getting to that weird stage where I'm like, oh, I've kind of been out of Scotland more, but only living. I work up here all the time, so I'm never away from Scotland and I'm always home. But so my choices to me are home, you know, it really makes me feel like home. So my choice of album was Deacon Blues, Raintown. And to me, I'm having to say all this, I'll caveat this, but I might cry.
I know.
When I talk about these things.
And I'm just holding this up. One of my 7 copies.
Yeah, even the cover of it. The cover of it is Oscar
Marzaroli's Glasgow landscape.
And even the cover of it makes me go Glasgow, because it is. But this album to me is, I'd say it's in my heart and it's in my head as well, and it's always been, to me, it says Glasgow. When I put it on, it reminds me of so many things, and it's punctuated my life. And even now, I was doing a bit of research before this podcast, and so I've been listening to it loads again. I mean, I listen to it all the time anyway, but more so, and really digging into it a bit more. And just from the opening, the opening bit
Byrne
is
in a
that
storm.
hurricane day, when Ricky Ross does, and his voice as well is just so perfect. But that, there's a specific line right at the beginning, when you knock on my door, like the big bad wind. And I don't know if anybody's granny used to say that to you. Oh, that's the big bad wind, that, like knocking on the door. It just kind of, so just from the opening lines and the I mean, I'm not making any sense probably to anyone who's probably not even heard it, but there's a piano riff that just sounds like rain, and to me, that's what Glasgow, not that Glasgow is rain, but when we go back, for example, at Christmas time, it rained from the minute we got there to the minute we left. But also that's why it's so beautiful and green, and dear green place, as it means. But this album, I am horrified to know, was released in 1987, which I was like, oh my God, have I really been listening to this album for that length of time?
Quite. I mean, it's decades.
And was
and decades.
I was 12?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I listened to it then. I think this album came to me much later. But it was obviously in my psyche. If it was out then,
and what
Dignity,
I would say,
all that. Yeah,
I was going to say, there were huge hits on that album.
Yeah.
I mean, comparably, by the time the follow-up, When the World Knows Your Name, came out, which was just massive, and I always go back to the fact that it's like, by the way, I adore Madonna, but I mean, Deacon Blue knocked Madonna off the top of the charts with When the World Knows Your Name. They were everywhere. But Raintown almost stealthily comes into being with this tiny line at the start and then is utterly bombastic. But it did have, I mean, we'll probably come to Dignity, by the way. This might be hours. I said 45 minutes. That was a lie. I did actually, Dawn and I had never even spoken at this point. She went, I can't wait to come up and speak about Raintown.
We've got 5 hours,
my books, And I said,
I know.
But it does come in by stealth. And there's bombast on it. But you've got When Will You Make My Telephone Ring? You've got Chocolate Girl. You've got some of the really defining Deacon Blues songs. So I think, a bit like you, maybe I knew the singles. Were you always aware they were from Glasgow? Because I had this really, really kind of like thunderstruck moment. I'm from Stirling. And I loved them, and I kind of knew the songs. But there was something about finding out that they were from like the same sky. You're in Milton of Campsie. So you're closest to Glasgow,
they talk about the Campsies loads in the songs.
Campsies over Christmas, right?
That's where I'm from.
Yeah. But there's something about the locality of it that was really powerful.
Well, that's what I think they sing about, Deacon Blue. They sing about the songs that Ricky wrote were about their people and where they're from. And so that's why it's so, for me, it's really pinpoints a place, you know. But I was aware they were from Glasgow, but for me, probably, I was thinking, what's my favourite on the album? Because I think she might ask me. And then I'm like, oh God, I like them all. But for me, it was more, I love the intro, and Raintown is one of my favourite. But I also like Riches as well, because I love Lorraine's voice in that as well.
And that, of course, was the other thing about Raintown was then there was this secret second album that was released with some of the first copies. And this has Riches. It took me years. And it was before the internet. So I was like, there's this other mythical record. It's literally, I'm not joking, one of 3 vinyl copies and 7 copies I have of Raintown. And I'm
Ford
slightly
podcast,
sad.
she is holding that up.
Right. Yeah, I know. I've just bumped that up. It's actually 20. But I don't know where this sticker has been lost at some point. But I think you might like this, Dawn, because this particular version of it, I bought in the Notting Hill Record and Tape Exchange, because I lived in Ladbroke Grove for years and years.
Did
I
you?
think probably around about the same time as you.
Right, okay,
I didn't know this till I was, really stalking Dawn for a little bit of research. And I'm like, Portobello Road. I was in Ladbroke Grove, and I got this for £2 because they had obviously overlooked the fact that it had Riches.
Wow.
Ricky's songs are still, remain. The early ones enduring. Obviously, Deacon Blue are back in the charts, and they've got a new album coming out. But the lovely thing is that maybe one of the defining songs on that, and certainly of their career, is Dignity. But he actually wrote Dignity when he was in Greece. And I've spoken to him about this in the past. He always felt almost more of a sense of home. And Glasgow was his home, but he grew up in Dundee. So it's that thing of being at home in your imagination a little bit more than...
I think that's why it speaks to me
right,
a lot. Because
and I've not
lived there for a very long time.
You
so
almost
there's certain things that...
More of a sense of home.
But there's Jerry Rafferty, there's certain albums to me. But this one is the one that talks to me the most about home. Yeah, even for him. And I think maybe that sense of longing, he sort of encapsulated that somehow. Yeah. At that time, there's a story that I've told many, many times. So I was living in London, and I just loved it. I couldn't really listen to Deacon Blue when I was in London because they made me feel too homesick. No. So I was there sort of late 90s and into the early 2000s. And I got into it's tragic. I got into a taxi one day, and the guy had Raintown on, and I was just like, that's it. I was like that guy remember the Lager advert, and they play Caledonia, and he just goes. That was me. It was like my Caledonia moment. Literally, I moved home. I was like, I can't. The pull of it, and it's like I'd been avoiding it because it was that strange connection. It's a strange thing when you almost feel more a sense of home when you're not there. Yeah, to some extent. Weirdly, you do. And I feel like when I go home, I love it, and I love when I work up here. I tend to know everyone, so part of the crew, it'll be crew, like even on Shetland. There was crew on Shetland that had worked with me on Monarch of the Glen, so it feels like home. These people feel like home to me, but I don't live there anymore. And, as an actor, home can be lots of places because you are travelling about so much, But now I've got a daughter and she's at high school and, you're kind of more... But I think as you get older, there's definitely more of a pull. But unfortunately, the weather just slightly puts me off a wee bit.
We didn't really sell it.
I had rollers in my hair, and my hair was looking like Beyonce. And then I should know Aberdeen better. Then I got stuck in the rain.
Absolutely brilliant. But I think maybe the first words you ever uttered to me when I saw you, and I'm like, oh, hi, Dawn, I'm Nicola, in their little hotel for you. And you were like, do you think I can take a hairdryer to the... Maybe you said lemon tree. I should have known.
I know. God. And then my umbrella that I did bring blew inside out. My friends have got quite funny videos of me, and then I just gave up.
Yeah. Now listen, you've mentioned Shetland there, and there's a whole other Deacon Blue connection.
Well, this is the other connection,
Before we get to it, I have to say that one of the other things about Deacon Blue that I think was particularly striking for me at the time, we're the same age, was the fact that absolute props to Charlene Spiteri in Texas and Eddie Reader, and of course there were other women, but there weren't enough women in the Scottish music landscape at that time, whether that's Simple Minds or Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Wet, 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 you can Aztec Camera. I love them all. It's not a barb, but it was quite rare to see a woman on stage. I mean, Deacon Blue were at this point and then being absolutely massive. Lorraine Macintosh changed the landscape of that record.
Yeah.
And changed the landscape of Deacon Blue. Like, she was so formative, and I think, you know, a lot of my attraction to that band was grounded in Lorraine.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
and
then
you hear them together, their voices together, and I've really been listening and tuning into it quite lately. I mean, I love her voice anyway, and Ricky's got the most, you know it's Ricky when you hear his voice. Yeah. But the two of them complement each other so much. And I think I shared today a live version of Raintown, a piano version, which is just so beautiful. And Lorraine's voice is just gorgeous underneath his voice as well, yeah.
But sometimes she'll be, Dougie Vipond will also say, great drummer of course, that she was like a kind of a battle landscape for him as well. Like, she almost sang as if she was another instrument. You know, she wasn't kind of kowtowed by it. It was the dynamic was really powerful.
Yeah.
But given that you loved Raintown and loved Deacon Blue so much, to then be on set with Lorraine, who's also, of course, an actor, right? And you're in Shetland together.
I know. When I found out she was doing it, I cannot tell you how happy I was. I was like,
really?
Oh, God, I'm going to be so fangirling over her. And I think in the end, we played cousins.
Yeah.
Have you seen Shetland? It's a complicated storyline.
You may have been cousins.
Didn't end well. Someone actually said to me, you're not coming back for the next series. I was like,
Did you watch it?
I mean, I didn't die, but it wasn't great, you know. So, when I found out she was doing it, I was just over at the minute and so chuffed to meet her. And honestly, when I met her, I felt like I've known her forever. Oh, no, this one, I'm going to cry now.
She is that lovely.
I feel like that, and she's become a good friend now, you know. And I said to her that I was coming here and I'd chosen Raintown, and she's just one of those women that is for women as well, you know, and she'll really champion you. And I mean, there was a thing recently with me with work and me kind of going through a thing, and she was just so supportive.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah.
Right.
No, not like, I mean, just unemployment.
All right,
And as a kind of working actress and having kids and getting to nearly 50, and she's just such a great sounding board and gives such good advice. And I can't believe she's my pal.
And the wonderful thing is, I'd posted on Facebook when it was being announced, and I was like, Dawn Steele's coming to Granite Noir, I'm so thrilled. And Lorraine was like, this will be fab. So I got in touch with Dawn, I said, because Dawn had chosen Raintown, I was like, you'll love this. Lorraine doesn't even know, and Dawn's like, she does know I've chosen Raintown. I told her.
I know, and I've told her, and I was listening to it like last week, and she texted me as I was listening to it. I was like, this is quite weird. I was like, I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, I know. It is that strange. Like, I remain completely obsessed by them. And the power of those early albums in particular. And I don't know if there's something about, you're saying, you know, that age where you're sort of, it's before you're aware of forming any ideas about what music you love. You're not quite
12.
sure what's...
Yeah, and I kind of think my daughter's just turned 13. Right. And that really struck with me, like... just when all the things I've been doing just now and looking at research and blah, blah, and I was like, God, it's really interesting at her age that she is just now and how much they take on and how much you are influenced by your mum and dad's music, you know, and that's why now I love, like, mum and dad are, you know, Alexander O'Neill and, you know, Shalimar and all that stuff. Like, I love all that, but that's because my mum and dad listened to all that as well. And Fleetwood Mac is like another massive thing in my life. But again, I didn't really come into Rumours till a wee bit later. And I'm thinking, why is this in my bones? Like, why do I love this so much? And it's because of my dad and my mum, and you know. So now I'm like, oh God, I better step up with my own daughter. And but she's amazing because, like, I was going to another album I was going to choose was Paolo Nutini, and she's obsessed with that One Night in the Bittersweet, his newest album, which I love, and I was going to choose that. And there's nothing like your child putting on a song that you really love from, you know, and you're a bit like, I'm quite proud that she's playing the Beatles or something, you know, that you've influenced, I suppose.
That's so true, but it's funny how they come to it in their own way. Like, certainly I've found with my kids, I think especially because my background is in music, I was in the music industry, I was kind of a music writer for years, and so everybody's like, your kids must have like brilliant musical taste. They do, but they have no time whatsoever for anything that I think is, you know, they have to come to it themselves. They have to find their own way. So weirdly, when they started playing Fleetwood Mac, it was because of the internet or something else, because you're the uncoolest people in the world if you're the parents,
The Christy
right?
McVie documentary was on last night. Did anybody see it?
Songbird.
It was on, it was amazing.
What a woman.
But also this, just on Raintown, I always feel this is such an album. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody goes, they don't make albums like they do nowadays, but that Last Night in the Bittersweet, the Paolo Nutini one, is an album as well. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, there's a real arc to it. And I feel that this album, Raintown, absolutely has that. And,
yeah. I think at the time, because Ricky Ross had made a sort of solo record before that, and he got to the point where he said that all he wanted to do was make this one body of work. He really wasn't thinking beyond that. Yeah. And so, that was very much the idea of making the record. Yeah. Not singles, that came later. Not hits, they came later. And it's almost like, even the cover of it, it's like it's a mood.
I know. I want that now for my wall.
Right.
I did say it when we were in Shetland, when we were filming Shetland, and we were in the Douglas Arms, which is this pub in Lerwick, if anybody knows it. It's quite famous. And it was like our second night there, you know, and we were out, and I was just getting to know Lorraine and Phyllis Logan, who we will talk about later as well. And we were all together, and of course we're in the pub, and someone puts it on the jukebox. You know, they put on Dignity or something like that, and Lorraine was a bit like, oh, here we go. But in Shetland, the people are just so amazing. They are brilliant. And it was all kind of still quite young, you know, 19, 20-year-olds who were still putting on this music. And I'd had a couple of drinks. I was brave enough to kind of say to her, I was just like, you know, that's my favourite album of all time. You know, I love it. And how does it feel when people tell you that? You know, how does that make you feel? And she's just like, oh, it's so weird. She said, I love it. And I'm glad that it touches people in that way. You know, and it's a real thing of your youth. But yeah, meanwhile, they were putting on Dignity in the pub. I was like, well, they want you to sing. That's what they wanted.
You're not getting out alive, Lorraine.
And have a wee song. Yeah, she didn't. I'd probably get up and sing before she would.
She didn't have to. So Phyllis Logan, this is wonderful because there was a photograph of the three of you, right? So Lorraine McIntosh, yourself, and Phyllis Logan, who was also in Shetland. Yeah. And let's kind of semi-move on. We'll probably go back and forwards, but if we're sort of semi-moving on now we're maybe moving through to your living room, right? And or wherever your VHS is, and you're maybe going to put something on the telly, usually films, but I mean, how can I argue with this Scottish streaming classic? I was like, of course I'll bend the rules, which I just arbitrarily made, by the way, for you, Dawn. What, are you going to give us some snacks? If we're at yours, or drinks, right?
I mean, definitely. Yeah,
right,
of course.
What are we getting?
Yeah. Oh, drinks-wise, well, it's whatever you want, because we've got everything. So whatever you want to drink. I'm a margarita girl. Oh. Unfortunately.
Okay.
I can give you a margarita, and or just a nice glass of white wine, and definitely some salt and vinegar crisps. It's got to be salt and vinegar crisp. No kind of...
I'm here for that. And by the way, what more do you need? That's all the
co-op
sustenance.
ones are particularly nice.
Oh, they are amazing.
Yes.
What is it about those?
I've done my research on the salt and vinegar crisps.
Last Saturday night was with my school friends. We all kind of still stay nearby, and she was like, Ali was like, I'm going to make loads of pizzas, we're going to make loads of stuff, and we ended up not being hungry because she'd got so many of those bags of co-op salt and vinegar crisps.
It's so Glaswegian as well. I've just had crisps, that's fine.
Crisps and a margarita.
So crisps and margarita.
But Phyllis played Bernadette in Cutting a
So we're
Rug.
going to talk about what I'm going to put on first.
We're going to move in,
I'm going to put on...
And there's a John Byrne connection.
I'm going to put on Tutti Frutti. So that's what I've chosen. I didn't choose a film. And I did email and say, so okay, if I chose a TV series. Yeah. Obviously because of my connection to it as well. So I did the stage version of Tutti Frutti, which we rehearsed in Aberdeen.
For a good while, right?
8 weeks. 8 weeks rehearsal. You never get 8 weeks rehearsal for a play, ever. But because this was John Byrne and it's the first time it had ever been done, John was in our rehearsal room for the whole time, literally with his typewriter, changing lines as we went along. Barry Hunter is in the audience today, who was also in Tutti Frutti with me, played Fudd.
Fudd O'Donnell, what a name.
Fudd O'Donnell. I was like, God, is that what he was called? So that's my relationship with it. I played Susie Kettles, which is the Emma Thompson part. And in preparation for this as well, I was like, I'm going to watch it again. So I've just watched all 6 episodes and I absolutely loved it. And I've just got such fond memories of it. And I kind of would love to go back and do it now, because I feel at the time I didn't fully appreciate what we were doing. I think when you get so into it, don't you, Barry, in rehearsal, and it was quite full on, and we were the Majestics, and I learned how to play the guitar, and It was just really, and we were the Majestics, I have to say, like as in, we were out quite a lot. The Noose and Monkey was a particularly favourite of ours. And we kind of almost lived like the band. You know, we were all in digs in Aberdeen, and me and my pal Claire had to share a bed because we turned up and we thought it was a twin room and it was a double bed, you know, and we were like, 8 weeks. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Yeah. We listened to Raintown quite a lot.
But because again, we're actually at, if you like, certainly the TV, again, we're 87.
So, and that, can you believe this?
Raintown's 1987.
1987. And then I looked at when Tutti Frutti was first broadcast on BBC Scotland. It's 1987. And I was like, hold on, what is going on?
Yeah.
And there's another connection, but I'll tell you that in a minute. There's another 1987 connection. But I had already done Cutting a Rug, so John Byrne's Slab Boys trilogy. I didn't get the part as Lucille. Which I'm always like, there's still a Lucille in me.
Yeah.
If I wasn't nearly 50, I could definitely play it.
But you were Bernadette.
I was Bernadette.
And Phyllis Logan.
Absolutely
loved
I've
got this version of it, and she's the OG.
Can you believe it?
And then she's in Shetland.
Phyllis played my mum in Shetland. And then it turned out that she was like, I played Bernadette in I think the first ever production.
Yeah, 79.
Of the Slab Boys. I was
got it
played
right.
the same part, and I'm just like, this is just so weird. And now you're playing my mum. It's like,
Do you remember I think Tutti Frutti is one of these brilliant things that has now had the retrospective.
Yeah.
We were maybe slightly too young at the time.
Yeah.
I knew of it.
Yeah, I knew of it, absolutely. Yeah, but watching it, we watched it. I think we watched it when we were doing it before we did the play. And then I haven't really watched it since. And you can still buy it. I bought it on Prime.
Yeah.
To buy it.
Yeah, you can. You can stream it.
I not have this on DVD.
The wonderful thing about it is there's so much mystery. The kind of story is, of course, that it's this band who are on their kind of Jubilee
their 25th
reunion tour, and Big Jazza has died in this mysterious kebab-related accident. So the band get back together, and in the TV version, the leads, if you like, are Robbie Coltrane and Emma Thompson, who plays Susie
and their
Kettles.
Chemistry. See, watching it again, I'm just like, their chemistry together is so brilliant.
Yeah.
And she's amazing, considering, you know, she's doing a Scottish accent.
She's superb.
I mean, she's amazing anyway. But he's just so charming in it, you know, and the two of them together, watching it again, it was a joy. Yeah. I loved it.
And you wouldn't mess, right? She's glorious and she's very lovable, but she's absolutely in charge.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. So when I auditioned, because I did have to go and audition for it, and it was the National Theatre of Scotland, and I do remember the audition was going in and standing up with Tom, who played McGlone. And Tom is just such an amazing musician. Tom Urie is such an amazing musician and singer, and he can play any instrument, you know. And all I'd done was a wee bit of karaoke, really, you know, at drama school. And, you know, I'm not musical theatre or anything like that. And we went in for the audition. And me and Tom, and he was like, well, just sing something. And he said, Anal, because Tom's got such a good ear. He's like, and he knows everything as well. I mean, this is a wee bit embarrassing, but I was like, I'll do Natalie Imbruglia Torn, which my friends know that is one of my karaoke songs. And that's what we sang for the audition.
Brilliant.
As they would say, that's a little bit of a ridder. And I remember Vicky and John Tiffany, just kind of going, as soon as you both started singing together, and Tom just played it on his piano, and I was like, just singing it, like as if I was, you know, at the Horseshoe Bar. And that was the audition, you know, and I got it, you know, which was pretty amazing. The thing about the Majestics is they're not amazing. You know, they are this, I mean, they're a good band, but that's what they really wanted it to feel like as well, is that it was a live band. So we all played every instrument, you know, every single night. I learned how to play guitar, which I'd already said, not very well. I was always like turning my guitar down a wee bit. It's like, oh God. And there was a big guitar solo in it as well, which we had to fake. But someone did think I did it.
But I mean, to be in Aberdeen for that amount of time, just rehearsing and being
Yeah.
a part of that, and then taking it to the stage and being Susie Kettles, who is this really, really formidable, like brilliant
it's a great
character.
part. I loved it so much. Yeah.
It is so joyous, and then at touring, and I remember around about the time there was a lovely kind of BBC Artworks documentary which mentioned the fact that, I think you said in that, I learned to play the guitar.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of singing otherwise, and you were on Fame Academy.
Oh God,
singing.
yeah. Oh God, see?
And
It's all coming out now.
It's all
Don't
coming
Google
out.
it.
I loved it.
It was for charity, guys.
It was a comic
It
relief
was actually.
thing.
It was for Red
By the
Nose.
way, you were brilliant. You were absolutely brilliant. Carpenter's track,
I
super.
can't believe I did that.
Honestly.
See, looking back on it, like my agent did phone me and it was like, literally, can you do this thing? It starts in like a week. Somebody must have dropped out. They must have. And I was a bit like, oh yeah, okay.
Wow.
I didn't really know what it was. And then I was like, oh my God, we're all staying in a house together. It was like Big Brother. We all stayed in a house and I was singing live on television every night. It was terrifying.
Oh my
terrifying.
God. But you
as
were...
yourself, it wasn't being Susie Kettles in a red wig. It's yourself, you know what I mean? Which is really
That's
exposing.
very different.
I cried a lot.
Well, I went back to it because I kind of could remember it a wee bit, And there's a lovely thing in it. You're on the phone to your mum and your mum gives you some advice, right? And your mum gives you, do you remember the advice your mum gave you? She gave you two things. One is like brilliant life advice. I loved it. You're as good as anybody else, right? And I think that's so lovely. And it's such a sort of Scottish thing to say as well, right? It's like, it's not like you're the best person in the world, right?
Yeah.
You're as good as anybody else. And the second thing was...
Stop eating crisps. That's exactly what she said. And I love how I've been talking about crisps again here. But you did ask.
But it's like, here's some practical advice that might help you while you're on national telly singing.
It's such a Glasgow mum thing to say, isn't it? Yeah. I've got to really stop reining it in with my own daughter because she's a bit like, don't say it.
Just keep it to yourself.
Yep.
But it was because, was it every time the camera panned in on you? Well, it wasn't like, it was just basically every time the camera panned in on you, you were just sat so kind of snacking. The mums worry about these things. But there is this lovely musicality to a lot of what you've done, even if you haven't been in a band, if you like.
I really thought about it,
Like, I know you started by dancing, and then you maybe moved on to the stage, and then
well,
moved
I see
into
it with
acting.
my own daughter at the minute. So I started off dancing, and then from dancing, then went into amateur dramatics, like the Kirkintilloch Players. I started there, but just doing their panto, so just singing and dancing, and then it turned into then doing other things, and me playing Sweeney Todd. I was always playing the men because I had really short hair. Ovs. And then, and I can see it with my own daughter, she's dancing at the minute and she's now just about to start in the, hopefully our local, the one in Whitstable. And I do think, oh God, she's already like, I want to go to the same drama school as you and Dad went to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because me and my husband both went to the RSMD, now the Conservatoire. So I can see the progression, why it would go from dancing into, dancing and singing and then into acting. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's been a massive thing for me anyway in my life. Yeah.
I never got into the acting part, but I followed the early progression. So I did all the dancing and then I got into panto.
Yeah.
And actually it transpires that when I was in panto, which was 1986, my mum's here. I was in 1986, Mum. Dick Whittington at the McRoberts Centre. I'm only telling you this because suddenly you're going to go, oh, I hope. Because the star that year was your forthcoming acting teacher, Dorothy Paul.
Oh, so you knew
Excellent.
Oh, I know it's funny.
Yeah.
I was thinking about her because I was thinking about things, and she popped into my head. So I went to her drama class that she did, but in her house.
So what?
So it was her big flat in the West End that she used to have. My mum and Dad used to drive me there from Milton Campsie to the West End, which felt like forever then. And of course it's not. But every Saturday they would drive me there.
When would this be?
Well, I think I was about 12.
1987?
Yeah, probably 1987, yeah. And to this day, so my friend Nikki's in the audience today, who I was at drama school with as well, and for our final year production, so I did 4 years at the RSMD, and my 4th year was a honours year. Yes, I got first class. It's fine. Thanks for asking.
Since obviously I had that as a question.
First class in dramatic arts, yeah. It's not like law or maths or anything, but yeah. And our final year production, which is one that the agents all get invited to come and see, was The Steamy. So we did that, And of course, I played Mrs. Colfeathers. So the total older granny, I had a wee grey wig, I had a wee hump. I was, like the way it is in the actual production. My friend Nikki, who's here, she played Margaret, which is what Dorothy Paul originally did in the TV show. So I feel like I've still got a Margaret in me. Mm-hmm. I'd love to play Margaret. I'm just putting that out
I'm
there.
hearing a few roles that are yet to be... Right, okay, this is great.
So Dorothy Paul was probably was a massive influence,
And going to our house, I mean, I remember her, so she was, it was Dick Whittington, so she was Dick Whittington, and I do remember her being like so supportive of us as kids. She was brilliant. Bizarrely, years and years later, it transpired when I got married that my husband, my mum-in-law, was best friends with Dorothy Paul at school. So then I got all the gossip, which can't be repeated just now, but we can chat about it once the microphones
it's a
are
different
off.
Podcast. Yeah, different podcast.
But she's clearly always been a legend. I love that she was, she was doing these kind of acting classes within her house. And, for you, I guess, as well, that was moving out with the sort of local groups and maybe bringing you into a different realm of connections.
And she used to do little castings and things, because I think casting people directors would come to her if they were doing something that had kids in it and they were looking for kids, and so that was my first taste of even auditioning for things and not getting things. But rejection from a very young age, which I think is really important, because I'm going to be honest, I struggle with the rejection side of acting. It's really, really hard, and as I'm getting older, it gets harder. And it's weird, you never really can... I don't know if anyone really adjusts to it. And I'm trying to, even though my daughter's maybe going down that path, I'm trying to kind of instill all these things that my mum and dad weren't into acting. They were like, oh, right, what do you want to do? And they were incredibly supportive and brilliant, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. But at least I know what my daughter's about to get into. My husband knows. We know how hard it is, so I'm hoping... to kind of instill a bit of, I don't know, I just always remember at Dorothy Paul's and kind of not getting it was a toy commercial. Again, it was singing, and I didn't get it, but it's so weird how it stays with you. Do you know what I mean? I will get that toy commercial one day.
Totally, yeah. There's a lovely sort of recurring theme of domesticity within so much of what you're saying. So you go to Dorothy's with all these other kids and hanging about her house for these acting lessons. But you touched on the fact that when you were up here in rehearsals for the theatre adaptation of Tutti Frutti, you ended up kind of shacking up and it was a double bed and everyone lives together and they're in the same digs. And Monarch of the Glen, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you were all living in this
one house.
And you're not that long out of the RSAMD, and suddenly you're on prime time Sunday night telly and you're living with like Richard Bryars and all these legends in a massive house.
Yeah. And looking back on it, I knew who they were, but I didn't, and of course now I recognise the enormity of it, but it's that thing of youth, isn't it? I was just a bit like, oh great, this is my first big job, and I still didn't really know anything about camera work, I didn't know anything about hitting a mark, lighting or anything like that. It was all a real big learning curve for me. And thankfully they were there because they were such experienced actors, and it was amazing to watch them.
Were you able to realise or to appreciate in real time what a huge part of our weekly landscape that was? Again, I was living in, so it's like the very tail end of the 1999 into 2004 or something like that, isn't it? It's sort of running. So a lot of the time I'd be up from London and we would watch it. I'd be at my mum's in Stirling and we'd watch it on a Sunday night. We would absolutely not miss it. Again, it was one of those things, it's a bit like Raintown. I couldn't really watch it when I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I needed to be at home or it would make me too homesick.
I've had a lot of people saying that to me.
Really?
Yeah, that's what Monarch, and it makes me feel really old because they're like, I used to watch that with my mum and dad when I was like 6. And I'm like, okay. But for and that's what people tend to say to me. They were like, for me, that was home, that was growing up, that was Scotland. I mean, it's a very different, it was in the Highlands, it wasn't Glasgow. Or, but to them, it made them feel like home. Yeah,
totally. But did you? Was there a point where you thought, well, this is actually? Because you're also in a sort of bubble up there, right?
I didn't really know. We were all in a bubble, yes. We all lived in this big house together, tartan carpets, I mean, it was literally like Glen but in better condition, not falling apart. But it was kind of like a 8-bedroom big house, and we all stayed there together. I mean, we did that for first 2 or 3 years, we were all together. And then Richard left. And then we all kind of started getting our own, like Al had a daughter, so wanted to bring his family up. So he got his own little house. So it was all kind of, but everybody was always spread out by that point. And Al was round at my house like about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I still see him. He comes and visits, and I put something on Instagram, and it's so funny, the reaction it gets from people. People are still really into it. And yeah, I'm campaigning to bring it back.
Oh, we're here for that, right?
I was like, you could do it because Archie and Lexie went away to New Zealand, didn't they? Oh. So now they've come back to take control of the house again, and there's still, Susan Hampshire's still there. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, they've done it with Cold Feet. Cold Feet was huge when it came back. Although I don't know if I can handle the midges. I'm a bit like things. I always say, yeah, that'd be great. And then I think, oh God, could I do the midges again? It was so bad.
Purposely staying completely quiet there so I could put this out as like a soapbox kind of like rhetoric. This is what's happening. Yeah. The midges, though. There's always got to be something to just like bring it back down, right?
One thing can I just say as well, that being an actor in Scotland, you tend to know lots of people, It's like, but now I don't know anyone under 30. Now I'm like, who's that? I don't know them. My husband's like, yeah, because they're 22. So an actor called Ron Donachie, who's also in Tutti Frutti, played my dad in Monarch of the Glen.
That's right.
And then we've got Richard Wilson, who actually went on to direct me in a play at the Royal Court.
And he's Eddie Clockerty, of course, in Tutti Frutti.
Like, it's just mad how it all kind of links.
Everything
And again, everything comes back to home, doesn't it? It all comes back to
completely.
A place, and we all loved it.
And
it's quite interesting watching it. Like, compared to television nowadays, it's so different.
Yeah.
And I mean, it won like 6 BAFTAs.
It's joyous.
It did,
but also it was like a 6-part 1-hour series, on the BBC.
And the scenes
so it's
are
like
so long.
Yeah, quite.
Which is very John Byrne, as we know. And he's kind of got this amazing way of the way he writes. His language is so recognisable, right? Because it's the way we all speak. But it's not. Yeah. It's really otherworldly, and he really is really lyrical, and so it's just got this thing of being really rooted, but also feeling like off the wall slightly.
And so alive, because as you've said, and Gavin Mitchell, who's Lackey in the theatre adaptation, has the same memory of you, of literally John Byrne being there and either making something or sorting something or literally changing the dialogue as you go. So
and he's very specific,
so alive.
John was very specific about how you said a line. Yeah, it was quite, it's a little bit terrifying when you're there and you'll be like, no, it's this. And you're like, and you're thinking, am I not saying it like that? I'm not, because you're trying to get what's in his head
quite
out there.
Yeah, and that's a tricky thing. And he was a walking work of art as well. Like if you saw the man, if you saw John Byrne, obviously his paintings, or you mentioned Jerry Rafferty, his album covers, his style was phenomenal.
And also the clothes, like I was literally wearing some of Tilda Swinton's clothes.
Oh, wow.
Like he brought in like a pair of her trousers and kind of. I mean, he was like, and he would just bring in these pieces of glasses, or I thought you could use these. Just to, I mean, he was amazing. Yeah.
But again, coming back to as a lot of things seem to, 1980s Glasgow. The book that you would give us for some bedtime reading round at yours after we've listened to Raintown and we've watched Tutti Frutti and also there's
sounds like a great night. Doesn't
I know,
it?
totally.
Actually, it's just a night of mine.
Any night.
Sadly.
With the
I'd be putting that
margaritas.
on.
But again, this actually, although it's a much more recent book, it takes us back to that time and place, doesn't it? Again.
Absolutely. So the book I have chosen is Shuggie Bain. By Douglas Stewart.
Booker Prize winning.
Which I think, I remember I read, because I just got my copy out, and I always write my name, I'm so sad, I always write my name and the date in my books.
Oh, how
I'm a big
lovely.
reader, and I love, and I sometimes mark them out of 10. Okay, I told you it was sad, but yeah. And I love my book group, and I've got a T-shirt that says book club. Yeah. I used to be really cool, and go to nightclubs.
You absolutely are. This is why you're cool.
I saw that I'd read it in 2020. I'd first read it, so when I knew I was doing this again, I've reread it. I did it on audiobook. I think audiobook's a little bit cheating, controversial, because I like, I'm a proper reader, but actually I'm reading something else at the minute, so I had to do it on audiobook in the car. and I've just loved reading it again. I've really loved reading it again. But interestingly, the cover, the photograph of the UK version, anyway, there's lots of different covers.
Yes.
So, yeah, that 1987.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Can you believe that? That photograph was taken in 1987.
It's the same again in Glasgow.
I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And I love his jumper. Like, I love that he's got a little bit of a jazzy jumper on that I can imagine Shuggy might wear.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed rereading it.
Rereading. It's a stunning book, and it is absolutely about Shuggy, but it's also so much about
it's about
Agnes, right?
It's about Agnes
so
Byrne.
much about his mum.
Yeah.
And the way in which I think for a lot of people, Douglas Stewart, who grew up in Glasgow but now lives in, and was like this huge name in fashion in New York, is constantly drawn back to
absolutely,
Glasgow and that period. And this wee boy trying to make sense of his sexuality and poverty and the sort of violence at home and trying to look after his
work,
mum.
Faith, home, dignity.
There you go.
There you go.
Boom. Mic drop.
It is. It's all, but it is all connected, isn't it? You know, and all my choices, I've been like, oh God, this is weird. What does that say about me? Maybe I should move back. Maybe that's what it's saying. No, but it's that. I mean, it's such a stunning book, and it really spoke to me the first time I read it. It really hit with me. Not that I experienced that growing up at all, you know, but it was a definite time, you know, the 80s, and you know the pits all been shut and real poverty, and but it is about Shuggy trying to protect his mum and looking after his mum, you know, and that's right through till the end, you know. Even at the end, should I say the end? Oh, there's a particular bit at the end when he gives a tin of fish to his pal's mum, who's also an alcoholic. And I was like, God, right at the end, he's still trying to save his mum. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's really heartbreaking. But
that's so true. It is. And also, but his mum is within the strictures and chaos and scenario that she is in. She's trying her best as well. Right. And,
I mean,
and
you
think
really root for both of them,
that's
it.
That's it. And I love that. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this wonderful mural at the Barrowlands, and it's Agnes's words.
Oh yes,
you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
You'll not remember the city. You were too wee, but there's dancing, all kinds of dancing. And I just think that's so utterly lovely.
It's so true. If I'm coming back to Glasgow, I need to get my liver ready. Do you know what I mean? And your dancing shoes ready, because it's always a good night out. You know what I mean? That's what you'll always remember.
So it was so much about a woman's voice.
But for me, that book, there was a bit in it. Sorry, just Nicola, bringing up what you were saying. My favourite bit in the book is when her and Shuggy are in the house, and he starts to dance, right? And he's just this wee boy, just losing himself and dancing away, and then he turns round and there's the neighbours and all the horrible wee kids all watching him, and Agnes Byrne just is like, she turns around and she's just like that to him, Gia Laldi.
Yes.
Don't stop.
Yeah. That's words to live by. It goes back to the mammy's advice, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally got him. Made myself cry.
But it is so lovely, and you know, some people were like, "Oh, it's a really hard." Yes, it is a really hard book, but it's really a beautiful book, and it's a really tender book. And again, I wonder if there's something quite Scottish about that as well. In a way, it can be those things. You know, it's violent and it's troubling, but it's stunning. And I think those things, the Gia Laldi or the, you know, there's always dancing. What you take from it is always hope. Yeah,
but it's like what you're saying, what my mum said, and you know, and just kind of. You're as good as anybody else, you know, and that's what Agnes is saying in that moment, is just go for it. Don't worry about what they are thinking. Just you go for it.
Yeah. But these depictions of a certain place and time, it's funny how we seem to be completely drawn back and back into it. So even if it's a book that's published a few years ago, as once you'd sent your choices through, and of course I was absolutely thrilled. I think as we've established, we were like kindred spirits with what you've chosen. But it wasn't until I started listening, I'm like, 1987, Glasgow, is it because we're 12? You know, what is that thing?
I know.
What's happening? And but I also think culturally at that point, Glasgow's really exciting. There's a real lot happening in theatre and across the board. It's just like this exciting moment that you almost try and dip back into. However, we are in Aberdeen, and similarly, your experiences up here you know, I mean, it's almost like a little bit of a second home, if you like, from the shacking up and going out and living as the Majestics in Tutti Frutti with the National Theatre of Scotland, or you're here filming Marionette. I think you were up here for that.
Oh yes, I was.
And then of course Granite Harbour, right? So it's like when I met you today, when we first met, like 2 hours ago, you were like, oh, this is a hotel I stay in when we're filming Granite Harbour. I feel like I'm at home. You can have homes in different places, right?
Well, as an actor as well, you have to, because it's your life is just moving about. You know, I've never filmed anything. I think I've done one job, and it was the Richard Wilson one, the one at the Royal Court, that I stayed in my own bed in 25 years.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done a job where you can just, you know, stay at home. And that's fine. That's the reason why I love the job as well. You get to move about, and even coming up here today, I was a bit like, oh, this is good. I feel like I'm kind of moving again, because of, you know, it's been a quiet 2024 was a quiet year. I
thought you were going to say it's been a quiet 2025. I was like, we are just into February, to be fair. And January doesn't ever really count, does it? January is kind of like one of those quiet periods. But it's lovely that you can get yourself somewhere and you're grounded. Like, that's me. Oh, I know this place. This is where I stay.
I'm good at settling in. Yeah. And I love when we do Granite Harbour. It's a shame, because actually Granite Harbour, originally, they wanted to film the whole thing up here, because of course we do, because it's set in Aberdeen. But just, they couldn't, like, financially, crew-wise, trying to crew it up, to get crew that would be up here for that length of time. So I think we only spent like 2 or 3 weeks here, you know, we were kind of in and out. But I would have loved to have stayed the whole time and filmed it all here. You know, it's so beautiful as well. I really think Aberdeen's gorgeous when the sun's shining on that granite.
As it was today. It's the fact that your brolly actually
apparently it was
broken.
lovely yesterday, so the taxi driver was telling me.
And it is a beautiful city, you know, but yes, it wasn't. It just wasn't favourable for you having your brolly. You were, you know, it was
broken.
It was risky behaviour.
Put it that way.
Yeah, the brolly is broken. As I said, you know, we can send people to the moon and Mars, but we can't get a brolly that can withstand the wind. So maybe we should become inventors. You just always wanted to be an actor, though, right? It's like you didn't really have a
I don't really. God, we were just talking about this with my friends. So I was a bit like, can't do anything else. You know, I've just always done. I've went from school to drama school, from drama school to work. And it's interesting. I'm going to be 50 this year, and last year was very quiet in our industry and really hard for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people who've stepped back from it. And it's been a real... I mean, I'm not going to go into it just because I'll cry. No. It's been a real turning point for me as well. You know, I'm a bit like, God, for the first time, I've been a bit like, what else is out there? Like, what else can I do? Like, what? And I do think it is just an age thing, and where you're getting to in your life, and your kids are getting older, and, you know, and you start going, what else is there? And, so yeah, but we're about to do a third series of Granite Harbour, which I don't know when. We've not got the filming dates in, but hopefully before the summer. Normally we film it in October, but hopefully it'll be a little bit before that. So yeah, I've always wanted to be an actress. That's all I've ever done. But now, when I'm speaking to younger actors, I will always say, just have a side hustle. Just have something else that you love to do, that will just give you a little bit of income and still get yourself out there and meeting people, and because I never had that. But I've been really lucky that I've never really had to have that.
No, exactly.
Until now. Well, no, I mean, obviously it's fine.
Excuse me, I think we've established Granite Harbour's coming back for a third series. Plus Monarch of the Glen, the campaign starts here, by the way.
Yeah.
Also, you're saying you can't do anything else, but I mean, I've seen you perform surgery, I've seen you be a vet in South Africa, I've seen you be a DCI, or I don't really know the COP terminology. I mean, you played a lot of roles, but the brilliant thing is we're saying about Susie Kettles, again, like, formidable, a lot of really brilliant characters, and a lot of strong women, if you like. That, again, I hope we do take it for granted a little bit on screen, because we should. It shouldn't be an unusual thing, a bit like Lorraine being in Deacon Blue or whatever. But I feel like you can do loads of things. I feel like you could give me stitches right now. I mean, I could
actually probably give you stitches. I mean, they wouldn't last. I could, and I'm a wee bit rusty now because it's been about 4 years or something.
I'll get my tetanus first,
City.
right? Okay.
Yeah. But you could try. I'll give it a go.
You've got to learn a wee bit of all those things.
Yeah, I've done it on a hyena.
Oh, have you? Oh, well.
Yeah.
I've done it on a hyena.
Yeah.
There's the headline. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Stitches.
The stitches, that is, yes. Let's be very clear. Well, honestly, it's been such a joy to go back to, like, okay, honestly, that's basically a constant in my life. But and Tutti Frutti, to watch it again if you can. It's just well worth going back to them. And these brilliant,
I think it was $8.99 for the whole series. You can get it.
Bargain.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to my night. I hope you all enjoyed it. And you enjoyed your margarita while you were listening to Deacon Blue and watching Tutti Frutti.
I know, I was going to say that.
And a wee bedtime story.
Yeah.
Shuggy Bane.
Ah.
Yeah, and now that's a part. Agnes Bane. Let's get that in there. That is a good part. Yeah.
Well, quite.
I'd probably be Ginty McGlinty, though. Yeah, let's see. They've all got no teeth and headscarves, but yeah.
I'd even be Jackie, one of the it's like even just the peripheral characters, because no one is a peripheral character. No. They're all in their own world, their own characters. I learned that last night, by the way, at the Ambrose Parry and Nicky French. You're nodding, were you there? Right? I was like, revelation. Everyone a book thinks they're the central character, right? They don't know. So Jackie, who's one of the early kind of canteen pals of Shuggy Bane, she's the kind of babe. Which is why I like to think. Well, out of the three, right? She's the one who has the beginning.
Yeah.
You think, what about
I would
Jackie's
do anything
life?
in that, because I know they're obviously making it for television.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be some big name, won't it? Probably.
Yeah, a big name
Agnes
like Dawn
Bane.
Steele. Hello.
And,
yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm too old now, but yeah.
I think you're just calling our bluff, by the way.
Yeah.
Agnes Bane. Well, anyway. Thank you so much, honestly.
Thank you so much.
This is just the beginning, and we didn't even talk about Loaded, so can we have a different podcast conversation?
Yes.
Just a
Raintown. And listen, can this not be Raintown? That would be a good musical, wouldn't it?
Oh, are you kidding?
Do you know what I mean? Or or a play based around the music.
Yeah, quite.
I know they're doing something about Lockerbie. I think Deacon Blue are writing music for, or Ricky is.
Yeah, and Ricky's done quite a few plays and things, but you're absolutely right. But it's just... That is a film.
Yeah.
And so is Shuggy Bane, even on the page.
When I'm reading Shuggy Bane, I can hear Raintown. Mm-hmm. Like I can hear the music. Anyway, sorry. Welcome to my head.
Thank you, Dawn Steele, not just for taking us into your house, but taking us into your head.
Now get out my house. I need to get to bed. Words I've never said.
Also, I think there's something about squatters' rights, so we're not going anywhere. Anyway, thank you so much. I've not quite worked out how I'm doing this yet, because this is the first one, but for the purposes of the podcast, I'll leave all this in, by the way, very postmodern. Could we have a huge cheer, please, for the wonderful Dawn Steele, and also for Scott, who is a technician and a wonder. So, and for you guys for coming. So let's have a few cheers, first of all. Louder. Louder. Yous are great, by the way. You can come back to Dawn Steele's house anytime. And head.
Just bring the margarita and co-op salt and vinegar crisps.
The brilliant Dawn Steele there, live from Granite Noir in Aberdeen. Thank you so much again to Dawn for flying up from Kent, especially to Ben, Katrina, Scott and all the Granite Noir team for being awesome, and to you if you were in the audience. I would love to hear from you if you were. You can get in touch on social media or via nicola@akickupthearts.org. I'll hopefully be back in Aberdeen with more guests soon, and I would love to let you know about it. In the meantime, next stop, Glasgow. Saturday afternoon, March the 1st, poetry, live music, books, tunes, drinks, Michael Peterson, Siobhan Wilson and Raveloe, 2:30 onwards at the Glad Cafe. The more, the merrier. Tickets are on all of my social media channels or via akickupthearts.org. Thank you as always for listening. If you enjoyed Dawn's chat about the Steamy incidentally, you can listen back to the episode with theatre legend Dave Anderson chatting about writing the songs for that iconic work, and also how it wouldn't have happened without Elaine C. Smith. And if you enjoyed our conversation about Deacon Blue, well, there is something very special coming soon. For now, though, I'm off to get wired into Michael Peterson's stunning forthcoming novel, Muckle Flugga, in time for the weekend. Bye for now.